When have you watched someone in power destroy an innocent person's life? My wife, a child therapist of 14 years, came home completely silent and walked straight to her home office. I heard ripping sounds, and when I went to check on her, I found her shredding every certificate on her wall. She was destroying her degrees, her licenses, even the thank you cards from kids she'd helped. She just kept feeding paper into the shredder while tears rolled down her face. It took me almost an hour of sitting beside her before she finally looked at me. 2 weeks ago, she had testified in the Kent custody case. 7-year-old Poppy had shown all the signs, bruises in different stages of healing, flinching when adults moved too quickly, drawings of herself with black eyes and her daddy with big red hands. My wife had documented everything meticulously. She'd spent 6 sessions with Poppy, building trust carefully. Poppy finally told her about the bad nights when daddy drinks. But there was more. Poppy had whispered about the special game daddy played. She'd shown my wife on the dolls exactly what happened. My wife had immediately reported it to Child Protective Services. They said they'd investigate. They never did. Dr. Richard Brennan, the custody evaluator, had already filed his report. Dr. Brennan had dismissed every piece of evidence. He claimed the bruises were from normal childhood play. He said the drawings were coached by the mother. He even suggested my wife was inexperienced with high-conflict divorces. He wrote that Poppy's mother had alienation syndrome and was turning the child against her father. The judge listened to Dr. Brennan, the expert with 30 years of experience. Full custody went to the father. The mother got supervised visits twice a month. Poppy's mother had collapsed in court. She'd screamed that they were signing her daughter's death warrant. Security dragged her out while she begged anyone to listen. My wife had tried to comfort her outside. The mother had grabbed my wife's hands and said, "You know what he is. You're the only one who believed her." My wife promised she'd keep fighting. She'd file appeals, contact supervisors, do anything to protect Poppy. My wife had begged Dr. Brennan to reconsider. She showed him photos, session notes, even a recording of Poppy crying about going to daddy's house. Dr. Brennan's response was cold. Some therapists see abuse everywhere. That's why we need experienced evaluators to see through the noise. He'd smiled at her like she was a naive student. You'll understand when you have more experience. Yesterday at 3 p.m., my wife got the call. Poppy Kent was dead. Her father had beaten her to death during his first weekend with full custody. The police found her little body covered in new bruises layered over the old ones. The same pattern my wife had documented. The same injuries Dr. Brennan had called normal. Poppy had been clutching the teddy bear from my wife's office, the one she'd given Poppy to help her feel safe. The news report said Poppy had tried to call 911. Her little fingers had managed 3 numbers before her father stopped her. The neighbors heard screaming but assumed it was just parenting. After all, the courts had given him custody. He must be a good father, right? The worst part came this morning. My wife went to the courthouse to find out how this could happen. She overheard 2 lawyers talking in the hallway. Dr. Brennan had just been promoted to lead the state's new custody evaluation program. They were laughing about how he always knows which parent will win. One of them mentioned that Brennan's beach house was awfully nice for a court employee's salary. The other replied that Brennan had helped his client last year, and gratitude comes in many forms. My wife ran to the bathroom and threw up. Then she came home and started shredding everything. She kept saying, "I became a therapist to protect children, but I couldn't protect Poppy. The system wouldn't let me protect Poppy." She showed me her phone. 17 missed calls from Poppy's mother. She couldn't face answering them. She passed out on the office floor around midnight, exhausted from crying. I spent the rest of the night planning. My brother is a private investigator. I've seen enough to know how these things work. Men like Dr. Brennan don't just make mistakes. They make choices, and someone had to find out why he made the choice that killed Poppy Kent. I met Dr. Brennan at his favorite coffee shop at 7 a.m. I knew his routine from my brother's research. He was there in his expensive suit, ordering his usual lavish breakfast. I sat down at his table uninvited. He looked annoyed until I mentioned my wife's name. Then he looked wary. I told him about my wife shredding her degrees, about Poppy clutching that teddy bear, about the 3 numbers she'd managed to dial. His face didn't change. Your wife needs to understand that custody work is complex. Not every therapist can handle it. He actually looked bored, like we were discussing a parking ticket instead of a dead child. I leaned forward and asked him directly, "How much did Poppy pay you?" He laughed. Actually laughed. "You're talking nonsense. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what's best for children." I asked him if Poppy Kent would agree. His response made my blood run cold. That child was troubled. She would have had problems regardless. Sometimes these situations resolve themselves. Resolve themselves. That's how he described a 7-year-old being murdered. I asked him to repeat that. He did, adding, "The mother was clearly coaching her. Children that age don't know what's real." I stood up and pulled out my phone. "I've been recording this entire conversation," I said. His smug expression finally cracked. Full story on channel linked below.